Hi, Mark. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Dennis. I have a little countdown timer in the corner of the...
It takes me about the Converge, the service provider is down. I use another old internet system. I put my SIM card, then I started it.
Okay.
Then it's UAAP last day to tomorrow, and Super Typhoon will enter tomorrow morning. So the hair or the head of the typhoon is getting in now.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm sorry for your troubles.
We have earthquake, series of earthquakes, series of typhoons. Wow, name it. And we have rallies. God. So
what do the rallies mean?
Replacing the current Philippine president.
Okay.
He's very corrupt. I'll try to remind others. Got my email?
Yes, your presentation is online, if that's what you mean. So it's at the bottom, 7 slides. Dennis, I called it stroke fixing. It had to be short. Here's slide 1.
Coach, good evening. I have a bad internet connection. No. Cannot attend. It's a problem. Told you.
Yeah, so it's the big storm. It's a big problem.
Yeah, big storm coming in. I think if it's gonna be really bad and the attendees is really low, let's cancel it.
But we could still record it, and I do have some other questions. If while we're there, Dennis, how many sessions? I have to get a pen. How many sessions have you done?
What do you mean?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. So, on an average year, we do almost 2 a week for about 50 weeks, maybe 48 weeks, right? That's about 100 sessions.
You're so low on your voice.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get this microphone closer. So we have about 100 sessions or seminars a year. Is that fair to say?
If we have about 50 weeks, okay, that's about um, if that's about, for example, 45 45 weeks times 3, okay, it's already 135.
Yeah.
135. So we're doing 44 weeks only.
And then I was wondering if we could ask how many people do you think on average attend the sessions? Like 12,
Oh,
15?
very. Your voice is very
It's still
small.
bad. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I'm closer to the microphone now.
You know, the head coach of India talked to the president of the former president of WSCA, WISCA, about what we're doing.
What did they say? Anything exciting?
He did not mention anything, but he mentioned that he talked about us to WSCA. You know, it's hard times now, so expect that people
That's
even just to pay for internet
Yeah, that's okay.
They're having a hard time.
Now, the clocks changed here in the United States. So we are not exactly 12 hours in Eastern time from what your time. Do you ever change the clock 1 hour forward or
Others
backward?
are afraid of the link. Until now, they're not used to use the LinkedIn.
Do you adjust your clocks 1 hour at any times of the year? We had a time change last week. Well, Dennis, I think we should begin. I know this is going to be a difficult time today because there are tremendous storms and typhoons hitting the Philippines and the internet is super weak. We're scheduled to have two presentations. We might have to go quickly or else we might have to cancel. But Dennis is in the Philippines. Are you able to yeah, his internet looks to be out. The cycling is just happening on there. And here comes a call. Hey, Dennis. And I will try to have. Yes, sir. Okay.
This will be a failure.
Okay. I think what I'll do is I'll
Okay.
go real quick through the slides in case anybody's tuned in, and then we'll cancel it. I'll cancel in 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay, you
Be safe. So here, let's take a
you
peek at
you
Dennis's
you
slides,
have
and we'll see what he had in store for us today. We're going to talk about stroke
handled
correction.
it. Yeah, now I'm I'm having difficulty on the internet. Okay, you handle it.
Okay. And of course, there are the 4 strokes, and the freestyle and backstroke are often coupled together. And there's a video from Coach Bowman. Looks like another video. Boy, Dennis does love Bob Bowman, and what's not like to love? Here he is from a prior year at Arizona State. Coach Bowman's entering his second year at University of Texas. His team, the men's team, won at Arizona State, the NCAA D1, and then the next, just 2 days later, on April 1st, I'll never forget, we thought it was an April Fool's joke. He said he was moving to Texas to take the place of Eddie Reese. And he's talking more about some the butterfly stroke correction, and there's Michael in the background. And we'll have to tune in another week, and we'll be able to save his presentation. Another thing that we were going to talk about today very quickly, and I'll be able to show it to you as 2 different topics. I wanted to introduce you to a video and a course that you can take for free about coaching girls, coaching women.
Hi there. I'm so glad you're joining us to learn more about Coaching Her. Did you know that coaches are one of the most important factors in determining whether or not girls enter in, stay, or drop out of sport? It's true. You matter. I'm Dr. Nicole Lavoie, tennis coach turned scholar, coach educator, and director of the Tucker Center for Research on Girls and Women in Sport. I get asked by coaches all around the globe, how should we coach girls? Coaching Her helps answer that important question. And the answer might not be what you think. Tactics, techniques, and strategies are important, but a majority of coaches lack understanding of a central yet unaddressed issue that negatively impacts girls' self-perceptions and her experiences in youth sport. Coaches' unconscious gender bias and stereotypes. That's why we created Coaching Her, a free digital toolkit based on the most current, comprehensive, evidence-based resources for coaches of young people who identify as girls. It's designed to engage coaches like you and fit into your busy schedules. You can bookmark content, you can start and stop when you want, and you can access it on any device. We'll be releasing timely new coaching materials too, like body confident coaching, followed by destigmatizing menstruation, mental health, and body image. We're here to build a community of coaches to help all girls thrive and realize their full potential. So join us, be a part of Coaching Her, help spread the word, and be her reason to stay in sport.
So that's a big introduction for a very important topic with regards to coaching her. Now, in the chat on the webinar here, there's a link that I put, read.swimisca.org, and it leads you to our learning management system with the International Swim Coaches Association. And those resources as to coaching her are online there. And there's a couple interesting pieces to talk about. They've done some incredible job as far as pulling valuable content together. And here's one of 2 examples that I wanted to put online, have it share. Maybe we can talk about it if you guys want to come online and tell us some of your insights about coaching girls. I coach in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm the assistant coach now at a independent girls school, sort of like we sometimes call it an international school in different parts of the world, but it's a private school, but it's girls only. And there is some differences with coaching girls compared to coaching boys or coaching in a co-ed situation. So in the center of the circle there is the basic psychological needs, and those needs spring out to a level of competence where you definitely are developing and improving and growing in your skills and your competence for your sport. And then there's choice, where we're empowering the athlete to be self-determined and to have choices and not feel like they're controlled. They're not puppets. You can't just boss the girls around and tell them exactly everything to do all the time. They appreciate, as most people, having some choices, whether to show up or what skills to work on or what group to get into or what events to swim in to meet. So sometimes there's a layer of choice that's built after the competence. And then the last is definitely, or not last, but it's a cycle, is a care, that you're going to be feeling valued and you care about the individual. So that's one, I think, excellent cycle there. And I actually read it backwards. So it's going to go from care to choice to competence. And we're going to circle around those basic psychological needs. Another interesting chart that sums things up well from the Coaching Her program and the Tucker Institute, which is actually in Minnesota at the University of Minnesota, is this pyramid. There are a lot of pyramids on our sport. John Wooden has a famous one. There's a pyramid of success. There's definitely some pyramids as far as athletic pathways. But at the bottom of the basic needs, we have to approach the physiological needs with food and water and warmth. They have to feel safe, safety needs, and in the pool that's especially valuable. There's locker room issues. There are travel issues. There's weather issues as to if you're outdoors, people don't want to be in a storm. And boy, we're seeing some weather issues these days with typhoons hitting the Philippines. So this is why this is a session so short. And then above the basic needs are the psychological needs, where there's a sense of belongingness and love, where there's relationships and friends, the team bonding, the camaraderie, the kinship, the friendships, being with your buds is very valuable, and making sure everybody's included. And then there's esteem needs, where you have that self-pride and prestige and your feeling of accomplishment, and you're not belittling anybody, but instead you're building them up. You're allowing them to grow and feel more and more confident and to feel strong with themselves. And then it goes to the top of the pyramid, where there's self-fulfillment needs. It's a self-actualization, where you're achieving your full potential, including your creative activities. So what I'd love to do next is hide this and come around and see if there are people that would like to speak up and tell us a story, perhaps, or a situation where that things are a little bit different with coaching girls compared to coaching boys, or coaching a co-ed situation. So if anybody would like to sound off, it'd be my pleasure to welcome you to the stage, and you can unmute yourself, and then we could talk a little bit about that. One of the things that I've found is that with the girls, they don't forget. The guys, we can have a difficult conversation, or we can have a little bit of a, let's say maybe butting heads where there's a disagreement, or sometimes it even gets a little bit, animated. And the next day, sometimes the guys they forget. The guys are able to jump over that past. It's bygone. But the girls sometimes will remember that, and they're gonna stick to those past feelings. So it makes it really important not to be argumentative or challenge. And if there's a grudge, sometimes it'll go hidden for days or weeks at a time, and then it can really reveal itself later on. So if anybody has something to say, I would love to see it, or you could put it in the chat. But there's a course that is at read.swimisca.org. And let's see if I can get there to you and show it to you, because some of that video and the video and the other materials were present there. Now, if I jump this, I might just go offline. So at readswimisca.org, there are 2 courses. One is about tackling menstrual taboos and creating a period-friendly environments. And it's a short course. And then there's another one on supporting girls' needs. So if you can go to these courses, they're free, no charge. You'll have to log in so it can follow your session, but it's right off the front page, Coaching Her. And this is the video we just saw. And you can go, there's just a little quiz at the end, and there's some very valuable resources. So there are 2 free courses, 14 steps in this course. And the other course has a little bit more to do with some of the locker room needs, with some of the materials or some of the shopping lists that you might want to have in your setting for the gals when they have their periods, or where they have certainly body needs to come along in your day today. So I hope you can take those courses. I put the link again in the chat, read.swimisca.org. They're provided free of charge to us from a center in the state of Minnesota. There's the University of Minnesota, and there's a woman there that heads it up. She gets funding from Nike, the shoe company, as well as some other bigger supporters. And her background is in tennis. So she was, I think, at one time a professional tennis player and a tennis coach, and now she's in the university setting. And they're releasing some quality materials that coaches should consider, and we're trying to make them more available in our discussions. So last chance, anybody else wishing to speak? Because I have one other little area that I wanted to cover, and then we'll be done for the day. Hopefully everybody's staying safe, especially in the Philippines with the typhoon hitting. So we did a podcast, just came out this week, with a friend, Steve Friederang. Steve is in Southern California, south of Los Angeles, north of San Diego, and he does private lessons. And he's been a coach before and he's coached some kids up to the national championships, and he's worked a lot with Coach Mark Schubert and other coaches. He's been a speaker at different presentations. He does a lot of inventing. He's invented a lot of interesting tools, some paddles and some flexibility things, and a swim bench that allows for some body rotation. But he's noodling on this backstroke rule that has changed. And I think it's time that we could hear a 20-minute video from Steve, and then we can talk about that in the end, if you like.
We've taken the relatively new rule, or the biggest rule change in quite a while, to allow the last 5 meters or 5 yards, depending on the venue, of backstroke to be underwater. And
let's talk about the backstroke finish with Coach Steve Friederang.
And because I've been working on underwaters pretty passionately with some of the swimmers I'm working with, you probably know, but just in case somebody else watches this, I'm working with swimmers from about 40 teams in different parts of the world, mostly in our area in Southern California, who come into at this moment, most of the time, to a health club, and we borrow their water, and then we take one lane of the 3 lanes often. And some pretty crazy things have been happening in those lanes where people go really, really fast. I mean, it's not yet world class, but very close. One of our swimmers just signed a full scholarship with Ohio State University, and we have a couple other swimmers top 5 in the nation. One that flies in from Dallas, who's top 2 in the nation, et cetera, that are doing stroke work with me. But it's stroke work. I'm a biomechanist, but they're working. I mean, we're putting them under some fire so that they can see how they're doing. We film them from the side underwater, from the front underwater, sometimes underneath underwater. Sometimes I get in, and we have, you may or may not know, a $40,000 worth of a weight room. You know for sure, I know, $40,000 weight room, and we're making some adaptations there too. But the number one thing that's kind of, I won't say revolutionary, but I've sent to all of my swimmers that are doing this the exact wording of the rule that allows for your head. Once your head, any part of your head reaches 5 meters out from the wall, that you can then re-submerge and go underwater and finish dolphin on your back. But at first, I looked at it and I thought, this is a great challenge for me as a biomechanist. A couple of years ago, because, people are faster underwater, and I only let the people use it in races who are faster 25 yards. We're in short course season now, yards in America. 25 yards dolphin kick as they are than they could swim. They literally have to be faster than they can swim. And we're improving their swimming a lot, but at the same time, it's a challenge for me and for them to improve their dolphin kick substantially. And not everybody will ever be able to do that, right? So not everybody should be using this finish either. If you're mostly upper body and your backstroke, you should just swim into the wall and maybe make that little dive at the end. But that's all people have been doing, is just diving at the end. I believe, and somebody who knows more about the rule changes and how they're done, but I can tell me better. But I believe the reason they did it, it was hard for the refs to be able to tell, all the rules said was some part of your body had to be, breaking the surface. So people would take that to its nth, and just the toenail would be up while they reached for the wall. And I think the refs just said, let's just fix this and let people go under, at 5 meters out. But we looked at that in the last couple of weeks and been playing with it a lot. And the swimmers and I have collaborated. Remember, they're from different teams. They have different, but most of them are pretty athletic. So we had one of our swimmers who's a pretty good backstroker say, well, first of all, the biggest problem was I couldn't figure out on a velocity basis how you could get away with you're swimming along, you're flying along backstroke, and now you basically stop while the other arm comes up when nothing's going on into streamline and then dive under. And that difference in velocity was crazy. There was just no way to make it happen. But one of my swimmers who comes in, flies in, people come in all over the place, which, is kind of heady in a way, but it's also a big responsibility for me. This guy comes from Kansas, and he's one of the top, five swimmers in the country in his age group, 13, 14, for the 200 back. But he was goofing around, and he's a fun guy anyway. We took him to Serbia to that meet, that ISCA meet. He one time just threw his arm back and just dolphin kicked into the wall. And I went, that's not a bad idea. Let's just put one arm up and dive into the wall. And I see that Ferris Casbetti actually put something online to show this. I hadn't seen it, but I looked it up the other day to see if I'm the only crazy guy working on this thing. And he showed that as a possibility. So I'm like, okay, I didn't make that up. But we have done some other things to make it even better. Like the last stroke has to actually be a stride that throws you into underwater. Because if you just lay it and then try to dive, it's just too slow. But here's the funny thing is, referees are still going to have a problem, because we're now starting to dive underwater before 5 meters out. As long as some part of the body's above the water, they're still within the rule. So we're diving down, the toe is still up, because that first dolphin kick isn't connected to the water. It's not underneath enough. So when they throw it down, they're still pushing on the water. So they're still moving forward, backward, forward. But they're submerging. And so by the time the head crosses the 5 meter mark or 5 yard mark in yards, and by the way, that's a differentiation, the way the NCAA saw it. It has to be 5 yards because the flags are 5 yards in yards and the flags are 5 meters in meters. So we're just using the flags, and then we're diving down underneath and dolphin kicking to the wall. That changes short course from being 65% underwater legally. That doesn't mean that everybody can do it, but let's say the Marchands of the world can, to about 70% can be underwater. So we've learned, we had a relatively faster swimmer than the first one we did this with, do it on Saturday. And he goes to a kind of a big meet around here, Kevin Perry Invitational around here on this next weekend. And he's actually going to use it because we were timing him. And what we learned is that he is only going to take 4 strokes on the last lap. He's going to make the turn, go 15 meters, come up, take a big breath, 4 strokes is the last lap, because you're already tired. But his arms are going to be tired, but his legs, he hasn't been. Oh, of course, if he does it 15 meters the whole way, he's not probably going to. He's probably going to come up where he normally comes up, swim the race, and then the last lap, he's going to do this thing where he goes 15 meters under, up, 4 strokes, down, right? So and then begins to go down a little bit early, and then dolphins like a maniac all the way to the finish. So that's interesting enough. And Mark, I have some video of us training this. So here's what makes it a little more interesting for a guy that actually has to make it happen, because it's one thing to do it, but this isn't ballet, right? They've got to do it when they're tired. So our set this morning was, and I've done this with 3 swimmers and they've accomplished it, we're making stuff up as we go along, but we're progressively getting better. We've been doing things already, by the way, like for freestyle, over, under. So you go over a lap, under a lap. And when we first started, they don't have to swim very fast on the first lap, and they should breathe a lot. They make the turn and they dolphin kick all the way the rest of the way. But now we've started to do that for time. And our fastest guy so far has gone 25.5. He's only I think he's 15 years old from, I'll just say SoCal Aquatics. You don't know who he is. And people, the coaches there, I think, are pretty friendly about having outside coaches. On some teams, they'll kick him off the team, which is beyond my comprehension. But anyway, just for getting outside stroking. But anyway, he went 12.2 and 12.2 or something. I'm sorry, 12.7 and 12.7, something like that. And he hadn't been training it much. He's just tough. He's a sprinter, really good dolphin kicker. We didn't know he was that good. And then we said, this wasn't even for backstroke. I haven't seen him since we got this done for freestyle. But we've been doing that. And so then we started setting records. How many over-unders can you do before you have to stop? And we had a guy, the guy that got the scholarship the other day, he's a distance swimmer and a breaststroker. Mom was the American record holder in the 200 breast. So he's got some talent, but underwater, he's terrible. And but anyway, we did it anyway. And he did 6 laps over under. He took it really easy. He's 6'5". So he's coming off the wall, short course, but he's terrible. He's terrible underwaters. In the 500, he's still almost state champion, but still could, we hate his underwaters. And even his pushes off the wall. So we're making it a lot better. We have him for 1.5 years, even though he just signed. So that's another story. But he went 6 times. We had another guy who just dropped 42 seconds yesterday, day for yesterday in the 400 IM, and 8 seconds in the 200 fly. He's already 15. So, it's not like he's a beginner, but that's a lot to drop, in this early in the season. And I think this is probably part of it. He went 12 laps over under, and, he was, pretty cruising the over part freestyle. Now, yesterday we flipped him over on his back. He's not a backstroker, but his IM's improving, and it's because of breast and back. So we've improved the middle of events. He's a very good flyer, can swim fly all day. And he could be a really, really good flyer. So And I think you're going to actually hear his name. We think he's that good, but right now he's like barely making sectionals. So it's not like a great swimmer yet. But anyway, he loves it. And I love watching him do it because, for one thing, it's focusing him on really needing a great dolphin kick. So even if he's not going to do it in backstroke, if we train him this way, it's really going to be good. So then the next thing we did was we started timing over-unders. And then now, since they've been doing that, they think they died and went to heaven when I say, I only want you to go 15 meters and then come up, take some breaths, go back down and dolphin some more, right? And it's only for one lap. So it's pretty cool. We know that it should have changed the whole sport, but it didn't, because I think basically because mechanically I couldn't either figure out how you're gonna make up for that time that you're going back up into streamline and then trying to get underwater. Even if you're faster underwater, the velocity change from backstroke to that diving underwater was just too great. We think we've really got it. One other thing we found is, and this is something I didn't do, it's collaboration with these swimmers. When you go one-on-one, you get to ask a lot of questions and they get to contribute. So I really like that part of what we call the triangle, where the left side is your team. It helps you with a lot of things, no doubt. Then the bottom is your mentor. Da Vinci, we always bring up Da Vinci and the second Mona Lisa. Somebody was learning from Da Vinci, right? So that's your mentor. You try to find a really good mentor. I think every team should have one, and they shouldn't always be me. I'm not saying that, but you should have somebody who's really, really good at this stuff for the one-on-one sort of stuff. And then there's the hypotenuse. So this is a perfect example. The guy that's going to use it at the Kevin Perry meet, this backstroke finish, got in on Sunday after his Saturday lesson on his own at his health club, because he has to belong. So he gets in on his health club and worked on it on his own. And that's the hypotenuse. How many times do our swimmers just get in and just spend a half an hour working on something that they know they need to work on, or something new like this, and just have a lot of fun with that. And most of us that are really good at stuff, it's what we do. It's like I started the magazine, you start a lot of different things. The greatest Schubert does a lot of things that are creative. You don't even know he's done them. You look at David Marsh. Oh my gosh! The underwater, the Lochte rule, where he flip turns and came off on his back, dolphin kicking, and then went to freestyle. They actually had to make a rule, and David said that's one of the many times that they've made a rule against something I helped create. But it kept David fresh, and he's still fresh at his age in coaching. I think swimmers need to do that too. We need to give them the ability to do that. And by give them, I mean, sometimes we're paying for water and there's no time. But when there is time and they can go to a club and work on their own, I think we ought to really encourage that. One of my swimmers is a pretty good backstroker. He said, why don't I just go into crossover position? Because the problem is, when you're streamline and you're locking that streamline, you got a hand, a hand around the hand, hand around the hand, and you're locking it up. But really, if you take one away, this is a pretty good streamline. If you keep your hand, your arm connected to your ear. If you do this, water's getting in and slowing you down, right? So it's really going to take a lot of practice. But what he said is, why don't we just go in the position we are when we do a crossover back to breast turn? So he put this, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, that's perfectly legal. You're kind of on your side, but you're not all the way on your side. And as long as you don't go too far, that's legal. So he's got his head buried, his head buried in his arm. And he's nailing his dolphin kick, and he's a little more on his side, but he's not all the way on his side. So the refs are still going to have a little bit of a challenge. If someone goes all the way to their side, that's illegal, that's disqualified. Or if they get completely submerged before any part of their head gets to the 5 meter mark or the 5 yard mark, they're going to have to watch for that too. I do think this is easier to ref, though. I really do. It's not crazy. If somebody gets completely their side, it's going to be pretty obvious, I think, that they're going to have to look for it. But
you do swim on top, go underwater by 25, and then you're doing.
No, I'm sorry. Say that again. By 25.
So you call them over unders. So they're swimming.
Oh, you mean for training?
Water.
For training, you mean?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, but one kid's going to do it for 300 yards or 350 yards or whatever. They're just doing it over and over again.
Yep.
Are you worried about the breath holding things or the hypoxic part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons we do it one-on-one. I wouldn't necessarily say a whole team unless you're very confident and you've got a staff and you're watching. I think one of the reasons people aren't good at underwater is that concern. But here's what we learned. All you do is you go get a $10 oximeter that goes on your finger. You try to keep it dry while they're doing this, and they come to the sun. We use this a lot. We use it when I'm very concerned about it. What's funny is when we did that with this, the guy did 12, I can watch him and kind of go. Now remember, I'm walking with him, I'm watching him. So actually his mom comes in sometimes. She used to be a ballerina and stuff. Sometimes she'll watch. But when I think we're really pushing it, like if we start to do 2 or we start to do, whatever, if we do, even when we go, we put tubes down. So they go down, we go at 15 meters. And sometimes we'll go at 200 something and they have to go to the tube and come up. So at the end of that, I'll have them do an oximeter. And if they're below 98%, we'll wait till they get at 98%. And if it seems like it's taking a long time, we'll take a look at that. And what I do then, and this is where being organized is important, is I'll look back and say, how often have they been doing this? And are they not recovering day to day or something, something like that? Did you do a lot of breath holding yesterday? I'll ask them, what did you, I don't even ask that. I'll say, what did you do yesterday? And they'll tell me if they've done a lot of breath holding, but it's not cumulative. It's not usually a problem. If you can get them, I mean, it's funny because we happen to have somebody, we're in a public pool. So some of the people that come in there are pretty interesting. There's a guy there that his record is 5.5 minutes of free diving, and the record is 17 minutes. So, but again, he'll say, yeah, I started with, half a lap, or I started with 15 seconds, and then I progressively improved. And this is a smart guy. Now there's some dummies out there, but our swimmers won't be dummies. And they're programmed to tell me, hey, I'm getting a little lightheaded, or, come up if you have to come up. But if you do it progressively, this is really not as hard as it sounds. And here's another thing I tell them is, if you don't like holding your breath, the solution is to be faster. And then I sort of laugh, and they sort of laugh with me. And I'm like, so we want to keep that ankle flexibility improving. And I bring a protractor with me to every practice when it's off base. And of course, in our gym, we have one pounded to the wall. And we tell all coaches, have a protractor there. Build the modality of having the back of your leg on the ground, point your toe, and let's see how close you are to 180. And in Lockie's case, you have to put him up on a 2x4 because he goes all the way down below that to 180. And then even with Lockie, if you gain a quarter of an inch, just a quarter of an inch, every 4 kicks is an inch. Oh, come on, man. You win by an inch. Win by an inch, you won, And so that's just an inch for 4 kicks. So ankle flexibility becomes really, really critical. And then hip extension ability, which is not something we have in normal everyday life. So we also work on a lot of things on extending the hip with the leg straight, because most people, when they're too weak, will bend their leg on the extension, dragging water. So people say the down kick is as important as the up kick in backstroke and reverse. It is if you do it right. It isn't if you do it wrong. In fact, often you'll find a backstroker who tries to kick harder will actually be slower. When they try to take off, we'll find that as a biomech, I look for that. As they go faster and we film them on the side, it looks like their leg is actually starting to turn more, like they're bicycling more, and we have to fix that. So those things, as we fix them and as we see shifts in those lines of best fit, we start saying, hey, you're the kind of person that can train more underwater, to your point, and you're the kind of person that can race more under the water, is what we're really after. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous to cover that safety groundwork. And I also think that doing 25 underwater is, a feat for a 10-year-old perhaps, but our kids got to be able to do that, right? You're underwater for 10, 11, 12 seconds. That's not like you're underwater for 45 seconds doing a 25. So that's really important distinction, and that's great. Okay, so last then, a new question. Hip extension. So how are you improving that? And what does that mean more in layman's terms?
We do other things. Simple things really, where I'll stand at the end of the lane. They'll put their waist on the pool deck, like they're halfway in and halfway out. They'll grab my feet, or they'll grab my ankles, and they'll lift their legs out of the water, right? So they're on their stomach and they'll lift their legs out of the water, and we'll do some reps of that. That's called reverse hyperextension. And we have a reverse hyperextension machine here in our swim gym. So we do it that way. That's one way. There's a ton of other things we're seeing people do. So there's a video of Sjostrom with a barbell with 40, it looks like 45s on the ends. Their shoulders on the bench and doing hip extensions, right? So where she's doing hip thrust. Those aren't extensions, but they are in a sense because you're extending down. So you're actually working on your glutes. And I do those as part of my workout that is completely separate from swimming. And my glutes will sometimes I literally will stand up and grab my butt. I'm so on fire. So we do that. Then there's this rolling thing we use on the ground where we put our ankles in this rolling thing and we do reverse on that. And we do that with 1 foot and 2 feet. We'll add weight to the waist. I just did that this morning, in fact, as part of my workout, hip extensions that way. But to measure it, we stand and put an ankle strap on us. We'll grab onto something for stability sometimes not. And we'll pull weights. Usually we don't use weights. We use isokinetics. But you could use weights where you put a pulley away from the wall. Sometimes you'll stand up on something so your leg will be free to be able to pull back. And you'll pull back. And what I look for as a biomechanicist is I stand on the side to see if they've gone to their hamstrings. And if they've gone to their biceps femoris, which is stronger, we tell them not to because, although the biceps femoris need to be strong, but not for this part of the kick. If they bend their leg on their recovery phase, they will put the brakes on. So even Phelps put the brakes on there. When you watch him carefully on his dolphin kick underwater for his 200 fly, there were brakes there that Marshawn has a little bit less. And it's, again, we're talking about if it's a quarter inch less, man, it's worth it, and so we're looking very carefully at that. But as we see more and more strength there, then we expect more and more strength in the water, but strength alone won't do it because you got to do a lot of dolphin kicks to go 70% underwater for backstroke, 65% short course for free and fly. We also don't want to see them bending and dolphining. We want to see them come up straight and then dolphining too. And obviously they bend on all the other strokes. This swimmer went from a 29.50 fly. This weekend, she went 26 for the 50 fly, and she's 14, but is a 16 and under meet, and she beat everyone. She also dropped from 103 to a 59 fly, and yet you think, well, wait a minute, you were just talking about backstroke, and you're working on backstroke. Yeah, we are, but her underwaters have really improved because of it. I think this is a village. I don't think a single coach should tell swimmers, don't go other places to get better, especially when you've got 20 or 30 people. If you have 20 people, you have 3 minutes each per hour. So that's a long-winded way to talk about what I'm working on, but it's more than just the backstroke finish.
This Heavy or Not episode with Steve Friederang is a example of a weekly meeting that we're hosting with ISCA and Heavy or Not. So if you are interested, you can subscribe, watch our calendar, and we'll send you some notifications so that you can sit in on these webinars and also ask your questions. Follow along. So that was our latest episode of the podcast, Heavy or Not. It's online at wafsu.org also. And boy, Steve dropped a lot of golden nuggets in there. I was wondering what you guys thought. I like the creativity. I like that choice that was in there, that the athletes get to decide a little bit as to how to problem solve and how to make it work. And the safety factor is important. We can't be having our kids hold their breath for minutes at a time. But a little burst, maybe for 15 seconds as you do a 25, get up, swim casually, breathe, but you're being watched as the coach watches you like a hawk along the side of the pool, and being able to do private lessons. I was wondering how many of the coaches here do private lessons, either with your own team or maybe you throw it open to people in your area can come in to do some private lessons. And you have a lot more time to dissect the different smaller elements of the stroke or of the practice or of the sets or of the training. So if anybody find anything of value in there, put it in the chat, or else it'd be wonderful to have you come online and tell us what you like. I also like those leg extension exercises where the swimmers are in the water with their legs, but their upper body is bent on the pool deck, and they're getting a grip with grabbing somebody's ankles so that they have a little more leverage, and then they're lifting hard, getting their legs, pull it up back. Hey, I'm hearing somebody. What did you have to think to say?
Oh, no, sir. I'm just wrong. No.
Eduardo, you're unmuted and you're in a windy situation here.
Sir,
I just muted you again. You could talk to me and we'll be able to go over this. But the last thing I wanted to mention, and then we could either go away or chat more, is the weekly conversations are started with Steve. So every week at 1:30 Eastern time in the afternoon, which is going to be really bad if you're in the Philippines, it'll be in the middle of the night. Well, I'm going to have a conversation with Steve Friederang, and then we'll record them. And if there's some good things, we'll put them together in a magazine that he has called Competitive Swimmer, or we'll possibly slide them into a podcast or into a course. So I'm going to try to capture some of those things. But if you're there in person, you'll be able to ask us questions or use the chat like we can do here as well. So I want to invite everybody to this. I'm going to end the streaming now.